Everything that I have done so far, I always have done it with a lot of curiosity,
Okay.
used a lot of my intuition. So I usually follow that.
Yes.
And I have this mindset that always want to be very adventurous. So I don't care what the outcome is, I'm still going to go with it.
Yeah.
You should be embracing fear and you should see fear as your ally. So every time you're afraid of something, just go with it because you will see that there are greater things waiting for you on the other side.
You are listening to the 5 a.m. podcast, and today is your day. Good morning, early risers, and welcome to another enlightening episode of the 5 a.m. podcast, where we start our day with conversations that inspire, challenge, and energize us before many start theirs. I'm thrilled to welcome an individual who embodies the spirit of versatility, vitality, and continuous growth. Our guest today is Urmi Hossain, a self-published author, engaging speaker, thoughtful blogger, and the host of the impactful podcast, Stories Beyond Borders. Urmi's journey is a fascinating one. While working in the financial services industry, she holds both the prestigious CFA and CAIA designations, but what makes her story particularly compelling is how she's cultivated a rich life beyond her professional achievements. Her debut book, Discovering Your Identity, A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle, explores her experiences as a third culture child, navigating the complex terrain of belonging, cultural identity, and self-worth. Through her podcast, she amplifies diverse voices and dives into the theme of identity, migration, language, and the ever-evolving concept of home. Now, a warm welcome to you as you listen and watch, wherever that might be. Please consider sharing this with 3 of your friends. I know that many are going to enjoy this conversation. And of course, a big thanks to our friends that have ventured over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast and supported the show with a few of those delicious virtual cups of coffee this week and last. Urmi, thank you so much for joining us for a 5 a.m. conversation.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Yes, you've crafted such a multi-dimensional life while maintaining balance and purpose and joy. So I'm looking forward to just talking to you about your experiences and your book, of course, which I just mentioned is entitled Discovering Your Identity, A Rebirth from Interracial Struggles. That sounds like you've had a profound personal journey so far. Can you maybe talk about that pivotal moment that inspired you to document and share your experiences?
Yes, for sure. So, like you mentioned, I did have a very profound personal journey. And for me, it was important to document this somewhere. That's why sometimes
Hmm.
I always say that me, like creating the book was like sort of like digital journaling, like I'm writing down my thoughts, I'm writing down my experiences. And I was very much inspired by another author who is actually based in Canada as well. And I picked up her book, I read it, and then I was like, oh my gosh, if she was able to do it, if she was able to tell her story, why can I not do the same thing
Yes.
too? And so that's how my journey started. And what happened is back in the days before writing the book, I was invited to many podcasts to talk about my story of being a third culture kid, how I navigated these whole challenges of like being in
Mm.
multiple cultures, finding my cultural identity. And I was like, I'm using my voice to tell a story, but I want to find another way to tell my story. So that's
Hmm.
how I created the book, and it was more my own accomplishment. Like I didn't do it because, I wanted to sell so many books and so forth. It was just being able to tell the world that I did it.
Right.
I have written a book and I wanted to have something concrete that I can go back to whenever, I get old or stuff like that. And I think it's always nice to go back to the things that you have written,
Hmm.
because then I feel like you see a different version of yourself in the book. And so that's why I wanted to have that book. And it was very therapeutical, the whole process, I would say. Yeah.
Yes. And so how did your family members respond to the book?
Yeah, good question. I don't think they even know about it.
Oh, okay.
No, it's out there. I share the book with trusted people, people
Hmm.
that I know I can count on. I do talk about my experiences living in Italy and how it was, to navigate two cultures. I make a comparison between the Bengali and the Italian culture. But to be honest, it's not just something I went and promoted it to my family.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that's fair. That's fair. And just speaking of Italy, in that statement, that would be a very hard, I would think, a very hard culture to penetrate. Just with the language and learning Italian is not easy, and even in their culture, not a lot of them know English as a language. And so when we think about languages as kind of that first step into navigating a new culture, can you talk a little bit about learning the different languages that you know and how much of a necessity that was, even not just to fit in, but to enter the door?
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about this because there are two stories here.
Okay.
So there
Okay.
is the story of my parents moving to Italy, and then there's my story of being born there.
Okay.
So when my parents moved there, they didn't know how to speak the language. So for them, it was like we're starting from scratch, literally starting from
Yeah.
scratch. They had no connection, they didn't know anyone at all. So for them, it was hard to learn the language, but they knew they had to do this in
Oh,
order to
yeah.
survive.
Right.
And then I come in, but my experience is different because I was born there. So I was already enrolled to the education system over there. So
Okay.
I knew the language from, I don't know, like kindergarten, I
Okay.
would say. So it was a different experience for me because I feel like for me it was easier to connect with everyone, especially with my
Mm.
Italian friends, because I knew the language and I have no accent and so forth. The
Okay.
only thing that is different is the way I look. Like everyone knows that
Mm.
I'm not Italian, even though I'm born there.
Yeah.
And and one thing I can tell you is that like Italian people really appreciate when you make an effort to speak their language. Like
Mm.
they just love it when you say ciao, come
Yes.
stai, like it's just they appreciate when someone makes that effort to
Yeah.
know their mother tongue. So that was
Right.
my experience. Like me, even now when I go back, like Italy is my home, this is my home country. Like I always speak, Italian and I know that I'm home and everyone loves that, like like now I go back as a tourist, but I never speak in English with anyone.
Mm.
Like Italian is my adopted mother tongue. That's how
Okay.
I call
Gotcha.
it.
Nice.
And I brought Italian at home. So my parents taught me how to speak Bengali, and then I brought Italian at home. And then we
Gotcha.
used to speak two languages at home, Italian and
Wow.
Bengali. Yeah.
Wow. That's fascinating. And so I know I can say Il sono Michael. Uh, and there's a few other things, but that being able to navigate like you have multiple cultures, um, how has your multilingual ability really shaped your sense of identity and maybe connection to different communities?
You know what? I used to think it was a bad thing to have so many different
Uh,
cultures, but I
okay.
learned to appreciate it because I feel like
Mm,
after years of reflection, I realized when I look around that because I know how to speak so many languages, because I speak Italian, I speak Bengali, I speak English, French, and a little bit of Spanish,
okay.
I feel like even my circle of friends are very diverse.
Mm,
Like you have those that are you just stay with Asian people, or you just stay with like
yeah.
people from certain countries, right? But me, it's very, very diverse. And I feel like the fact that I'm so multicultural, the fact that I have these two cultures in me, another the
Mm-hmm.
third one, which is the Canadian one, the fact that I speak all these languages, I feel like I was able to broaden my horizon.
Mm,
I was able to be more open-minded, more welcoming also to differences. And I feel like I'm a bit more aware when there is a difference. Like when some people say certain things, I'm I'm aware that certain things are not accepted in certain cultures. The way
yeah.
you
Right.
use your hands, the way you look at someone in their eyes. That some things are accepted, some are not.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm a bit more aware about those diversity.
Mm.
So those little things that make a huge difference. So I would say that I became much more open-minded, but I'm able to connect really easily, especially from a social
Mm.
point of view.
Yes. And I think in our day and age with modernity and all the technology, knowing a lot of languages is fallen out of fashion and use. And I think back to my maternal grandfather. He could speak 5 languages, and that was not uncommon. They needed to know those different languages for their business and their travel. And so yeah, when I find people who can speak multiple languages, I'm always impressed because I know what it takes to learn those languages. And I was listening to one of your recent podcasts with Michelle. I think it's Fotlinger Garcia.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow, what an interesting story she had of. Uh, it sounds like your parents were from the same, let's say, geographical location, even though you moved and learned. And then your guest here, her father was Danish, and I think her mother was Spanish, correct?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so even like we're just talking about language and different cultures and different doorways and gates and things, but some fascinating stories. And I certainly encourage people to check out your podcast. And as someone who, grew up in my homeland, and I know that it's not my parents' homeland, it's always interesting to understand that entering into a new place can be intimidating, whether it's a dance at a school or a nation or a business. And so through your career in life, what did you draw on then internally to enter those new doorways, those new places, and meet strange looking, strange habited people?
Um, it's an interesting question because I feel like everything that I have done so far, I always have done it with a lot of curiosity
Okay.
and with a lot of I use a lot of my intuition. So I
Mm,
usually follow that.
yes.
And I have this mindset that always want to be very adventurous. So
Okay.
I don't care what the outcome is, I'm still gonna go with it.
Yeah.
And I read a book about fear and how they say that you should be embracing fear and you should see fear as your ally. So
Mm,
every time you're afraid of something, just go with it because
yeah.
you will see that there are greater things waiting for you on the other side.
Yeah.
So just to give you an example, like me moving to Canada was a new adventure for me because I lived my whole life in Italy, then I'm moving to Canada, which is, basically doing the same thing that my parents did when they moved from Bangladesh to Italy. But this
Yeah.
time I feel like I was a bit more equipped, meaning that I know the languages, I have an
Mm.
education,
Mm-hmm.
I know how to network with people. But I remember when I moved to Canada, I really had to have that mindset of like, okay, this is an adventure. I
Yeah.
have to think of myself like Alice in Wonderland. And since
Yes.
then, everything that I do, I use that type of like mindset. Like I'm Alice in Wonderland. I don't care what's gonna happen. I'm just gonna accept things as they come. I'm
Right.
gonna be welcoming. I'm gonna be open with to it, and I'm gonna approach things with curiosity. And I feel like that has always led me to,
Mm.
good things. Like I was able to make friends easily. I was able to connect with people easily
Yeah.
and network easily. Because you do really have to come with that like open mindset and
Yeah.
mindset of curiosity. And I feel like curiosity has helped me to go really far in life. Um, Same thing with my professional life, like I am in finance, but even finance, it
Mm-hmm.
was not written anywhere that I was going to do, and it was never in my plan. But I tried the class and I was like, I love this. I'm just going to switch to finance. And this was because I had that mindset of curiosity. And so that's how I approach all the different projects or things in life.
Yes. Oh, that's really good. And actually, just our episode that's out the day that we're recording this is with Florian Horning, who goes by Flo, a great fellow. And one of the things that he talks about in our conversation is his fear. And he sold everything in Berlin and got out of his business and went to Africa. And all these years, he's still there. He's in Tanzania. He's lived on a sailboat, and he talks about fear and not realizing that fear is actually a friend. And
Yeah.
I like what you're saying about when we can say we can set the outcomes aside because we're not going to be moved. coming from like a Christian perspective, there's a lot in the Bible about not being moved by circumstances. And there's like 365 verses on not being afraid. And so
Yeah.
even our creator knows it's a human condition and default setting to be afraid. But
Yeah.
when we can say, fear, let's just get together. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be concerned about you. You don't have to be concerned about me. Let's add our strengths to each other. So I really like that you're saying that about outcomes versus adventure. And who wouldn't rather have the adventure than be so concerned about the outcomes? Like maybe the first time someone's making a cake, and if they're not focused on the adventure and the experience of learning something new, um, maybe they're even taking a cooking class in Italy and they're really concerned
Yeah.
about how this is going to turn out. And it's not about how it turns out. It's about the experience and the endeavor. So
Yeah.
that's a great takeaway from today's conversation. But I also want to ask about contact information. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
So I have a LinkedIn profile. It's called Urmi Hossain. I also have my YouTube channel called Urmi Hossain. My podcast, it's called Stories Beyond Borders, and it's available on Apple, Spotify. It's available on Apple and Spotify. And I also have an Instagram page. And if people want to find out more about the work that I do in terms
Mhm.
of women leadership,
Yes.
they can just type Women Leadership Organization in Canada, and they will find out about what we do at the national level. And they can also find out what we do at the various chapters. And I'm part of the Montreal
Oh,
chapter.
great. Well, that's good. So then I want to ask you then next about your experience. Maybe what's most understood about being this third culture person and how you address some of the misconceptions in the work that you do. Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com.
You know what? When it comes to third culture, like third culture kid,
Yeah.
um, there are a lot of misconception, especially if you are not a third culture kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to really not like it when people just assume my identity based on what they felt it was right for me to tell. So there were times, and it still happens, where I'm meeting people and I say I'm born in Italy, so they say right away, okay, you're Italian. But then deep inside, I'm like, no, that's not the full story. The full story is that I am Italian Bengali, because I feel like if you just say one thing only, you're omitting 50% of the story. And for me, my identity is so important because I embody both cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And if let's say I am around like Bengali people, then they just say, oh, you're Bengali. But I'm like, no, 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 guys. That's not what it is. I am
Right.
born in Italy, yes. I am Italian by birth and Bengali by blood. So I always have to specify this, because I feel like people, they just assume. And there is this tendency where people tend to just assume.
Mm-hmm.
So you're this, right? And no, let me just tell you the story.
Yeah.
And the other problem that I always find with identity is that, like, the typical question that we're asked, which is, where are you from? And
Mm.
honestly, you can ask this question to any third culture kid. We just have so much hard time giving an answer, because where are you from can mean so many things. It could mean the place where you were born. It could mean the
Right.
place where you grew up. It could mean the country where your parents are from. It could mean the place where you have studied. It could be the place where you're working. It could be the place where you have
Mm-hmm.
spent most of your childhood. So it's never clear for us how we should be answering that question, because
Right.
we probably have not done that work. But then people tend to assume, and that's where we really do not like that. And like there is an Instagram page called Home, where there is this guy who talked about this and tried to bring together like more third culture kids. One thing that I can tell you is that third culture kids understand each other.
Hmm.
But if
Yeah.
we are with someone who's not a third culture kid, we really have a hard time really getting our message across. And it happened to me as well, where I had a friend who's not a third culture kid, and she was like, "Oh, why was it so important for you to write the book? What's so important about finding your cultural identity?" And I was quite upset, and I was trying to explain it to her, but I don't think she wanted to get it. So I feel like
Yeah.
we understand people from our own community.
Yes. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And being able to build bridges,
Yeah.
which I know that's what you're doing. You're not even trying, you're succeeding at building bridges and building your life. What made you want to go from Italy to Canada?
Yes, it was mainly for personal reasons that
Okay.
I have moved to Canada, and then of course like I've been living here. So there is also the Canadian side, like because I am Canadian by nationality, but I don't know if by listening to some of my stuff, I can never mention that it's like part of my identity because I don't I don't fully feel it the way I feel it with
Mm.
Italian and Bengali. And I know maybe it might sound strange for some people. Like I do hold it as my nationality. It is like I have it in my passport, but
Hmm.
I'm just like, I don't know. Like I don't feel completely comfortable by saying I'm Canadian because
Yes.
I feel like I'm betraying my own identity by saying
Uh,
that. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, and that's probably another part too of that betraying where we come from or who previous generations have been. And so when you look back at kind of survey the scene of your even your family history, where do you see yourself in those that maybe you're like it's been said sometimes we stand on the shoulders of giants. And so thinking back, do you see yourself as a culmination of those that have come before you?
I see myself not necessarily as a combination of those that came before me. Like I see myself as a combination of what my parents gave me,
Okay.
but I'm also a combination of what the future will bring. I don't know if
Yeah.
it makes sense. I'm a
Yes.
combination of the past and the future because I
Yeah.
want to
That's
embody
good.
the two things, like
Yeah.
I do want to maintain certain things, but I think we need to integrate what the
Hmm.
future will be, especially when it comes from a cultural point of view, because we don't live anymore in 1920s, and I feel like
Yes.
mentality has to change and it needs to evolve. And I feel like some communities are pretty stuck there. And I don't wanna be
Mm-hmm.
stuck there. I need to bring changes. And it's not about giving up, what I was taught. It's just about embracing, integrating other things
Right.
as well. Because we live in a world that is so diverse,
Hmm.
we're even more exposed now to diversity than before. And so for me, it's more a combination of the past and the future.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense too, because none of our future chapters have been written.
Right.
And we can have goals and plans, and we know that we need to write our plans down. And I think it's like 40% of a statistic that if you write your goals and plans down, you have a 40% greater chance of accomplishing them. But it is it is good, and that's kind of I was hoping that's what your answer was going to be, of a combination of the past and the future, because there's so much life left ahead of each one of us that we really
Yeah.
can um, determine which road we walk down and what the what the scenery is even like on those roads.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you about um, just what advice would you just to we'll switch over to kind of some business minded questions, I think, of because oftentimes we can have passion or we can have kind of like, oh, another day at the at the salt mines or something like that. And so what advice would you give to professionals who maybe they feel trapped in their 9 to 5 cubicle and they struggle to envision more of either a positive future or a multifaceted life for themselves? What advice would you give to those people?
So you touched upon goal setting, and I'm
Yes.
big on that. And one thing that I love the most is doing vision boards.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And I actually do the actual exercise of like cutting papers,
Good.
gluing them,
Yes.
or even using Canva. And I think the first step is really starting with a vision board or even with a goal setting exercise where it's not necessary that the next day you're gonna start working on that, but just putting down your dreams and aspiration,
Yeah.
I think helps you, because I read it in a book as well. It helps you to like wire your brain already to go towards that direction. And I know that it's hard to be in a 9 to 5 job, because we all work in corporate job, at least I do.
Yes.
And I feel
Yes.
like it's hard to find that fulfillment, but I think it's also important to nurture our soul and mind through our 5 to 9. This is what I like to call
Yes.
it, because I really do my 9 to 5 to pursue my goals. And I feel like by doing that, you feel more fulfilled. You find that balance where your 9 to 5 is paying, your
Yes.
mortgage, your all these expenses, whatever. But then you have these things that you do in your 5 to 9 that probably are not paying you anything, but they're paying
Right.
you, giving you that, happiness that maybe your 9 to 5 is not giving you. So I always say vision board, they're great. You can put it there, like if you work from home, you put it there right behind your screen and you just look at it. And little by little, even without realizing it, you will see that you're stepping into that zone of like building the
Yeah.
life that you wanted to build. So my advice would be a vision board. I love vision board. It's just so much fun.
Yes. Oh, that's good. And we are, in my mind anyway, we are called to be creators around
Yes.
us, and we get to create what we have. And I really do love the 9 to 5 versus the 5 to 9, and what we still have opportunity to do. And so I wanted to ask you then, if somebody is listening and they're thinking, man, I like that, I got to get on this vision board, and they're inspired by your journey and your story, what would be an integral or important piece of advice to give them?
That's a good question, to be honest. I can tell you what I've done,
Mm-hmm.
from a personal point of view. I um I tend to read books, and I get a lot of inspiration from books, typically personal development and self-growth books.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
was this one particular book called The Ikigai, which is a Japanese concept.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with
No,
this
I'm
book.
not.
It honestly, I think that's the best book ever, because it basically talks about this concept about your reason for being.
Hmm.
And it explains you how, everything that you do is just it's all integrated based on your passions, how you can serve the community, what you're good at, and then it tells you this is how you find your purpose. And so my advice would be like people to definitely pick up that book,
Mm-hmm.
give it a read. It's really easy. And honestly, we do not realize this, because we think that, to start on something, you have to start with a business, but it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be like that.
that's
It
right.
could be just with a simple action, such as, I don't know, planting something, tomatoes in your
Yes.
garden, which is also something that a lot of people find fulfillment. Or maybe, I don't know, like helping, I don't know, people and it's from certain communities.
Yeah.
And so happiness is found in little things, and that's what the book teaches. So my
Mm.
advice would be to really start with that book and to journal a little bit about your interests. And there are self-guided journals where they ask you like questions like, okay, who is Urmi? What does Urmi like? And with that, you're like with
Mm.
yourself, present in your
Yeah.
like in the moment, and you will see that it becomes like very an introspective type of work. And with that, you will find your answers,
Mm.
and that's how you will come to the conclusion, basically. So I would say definitely to do that.
Oh, that's good. Journaling is such a wonderful and rewarding experience. And so, as we're just getting close to the end of our time together, I wanted to ask you about your experience with Toastmasters and how
Yeah.
it's maybe transformed your communication style, but not only that, maybe your leadership philosophy as well.
So let me tell you this. I love Toastmasters. I think there is a community of very smart people
Mm.
who are there really to work on themselves, and they're very much driven and very helpful. And what's so beautiful about Toastmasters is that it's a community and people are there really to support you because it's a peer-to-peer type of
Mm-hmm.
organization. I feel like there's a bit of misconception because everyone thinks it's a cult, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And let me tell you, for me, Toastmasters has been transformative,
Wow.
literally, because I feel like it started with me going to those meetings and not feeling comfortable about being in front of a
Mm-hmm.
stage, being scared, but I'm glad that I stick to it and I followed my fear because I
Yeah.
feel like it just opened a lot of opportunities for me. So, for instance, me being able to create my own YouTube channel, me
Mm-hmm.
being able to go to different podcasts, me being able to do like job interviews. Like, believe it
Yeah.
or not, it really helps you with job interviews. And I feel like it helps you even when you want to get a job. Like, you learn how to communicate with clients, you know how to communicate with your bosses, you know how to
Mm-hmm.
communicate with your coworkers. And even when you go to network, if you know how to communicate and sell yourself,
Mm.
the job is done.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that has really, really helped me, and I feel like it's because I also put myself out there where I've been using my voice a lot, is that I was contacted to be part of like panel sessions. I was contacted to speak at conferences. So it literally like opened the doors to many different things. And I feel like I was able to expand my network also on a global level. Like maybe before it was just Canada
Yeah.
focused, but
Right.
now I feel like I have connections like in the States and in Asia and in Europe. And so it
Mm.
has been really transformative. And I feel like it just builds a lot more your confidence. And I feel like people just already perceive you differently as soon as you're like, you come across confident.
Yes.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's an excellent response and some great takeaways from our conversation today. And especially even just in you talking about Toastmasters, thinking how we need to change our perspective of even what fear is,
Yes.
and that we don't have to be afraid of fear. We actually realize that, oh, it's a tool, or it's someone, a companion to walk along with us. Boy, does that ever change our perspective. So Urmi, I have to thank you so much for joining me for the 5 a.m. podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great to have you here. And well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What a great conversation. Of course, a big thank you to our guest, Urmi, today, and a thank you to you too for watching. We appreciate you joining in on this conversation. And if you haven't already, please help us grow the channel with a like, a share, and a subscribe with uh, I was going to say a subscribe with your friends, but a share with your friends. We know that there's many that are going to enjoy and appreciate what we've talked about here today. So we thank you for that. We thanks to our friends who've gone over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast and helped us out with that participation as well. Until next time, please seize your days, enjoy those sunrises and sunsets, and all the adventures in between. I'm Michael Klassen. Need morning momentum? 5 a.m. podcast, Wednesdays, 7 a.m. on WDJY 99.1 FM. Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com.